Welcome to the Francisca Show podcast on JewishCoffeehouse.com, the show where I give a voice to Jewish issues, topics, and people. I'm Francisca, your host. Welcome back to the Francisca Show, Franstans. I love hearing from you. I love talking to you. So keep reaching out. Keep letting me know how you found the show, how you're liking the show, what you don't like about the show. Let's continue the conversation. If you don't know, we have a WhatsApp discussion group. Feel free to join. If you'd like to join the group, please message me and I will send you a link. The throwback episode for today is Being Single with Tzipora Zelmanowitz. She's married now. The link is in the show notes, and today's episode is from a man's perspective of being single, his journey of dating, and what he has to share with the world. I need your help. Do you like the Francisca Show? Then you probably know that I dedicate a lot of time to this podcast, and I really love doing it. And if you join me in this vision and mission, maybe you'd like to sponsor the show, or maybe you'd like to dedicate a topic or an episode or advertise your brand on the show. If this seems like something you'd want to do, please do reach out. My contact info is in the show notes. Next, this is a Jewish Coffee House podcast, so there are other podcasts on the network that you may enjoy as well. So check them out. The link is in the show notes. I know we just had the premiere and release of Jewish Matchmaking on Netflix with Eliza Ben Shalom last week. We will be covering this on the podcast, so stay tuned for that. There is another current event happening, which is the release of Reclaiming Dignity, co-authored by Bracha Polyakov and Rabbi Manning. Bracha is a listener of the show. It's a humbling experience when I meet such dedicated and smart and accomplished individuals, and then they tell me they listen to the podcast. So that's always nice. And I'll be interviewing her this week about her book, and that will be coming out in the next couple of weeks as well. One more thing I want to add. Last week, I had Rivki Itzkowitz on my show. This week, I'm on her show. I actually think it's a great interview. For all of you who complain that I don't share enough about myself on this podcast, definitely go check that out. I will link it in the show notes. So go listen to all the things I have to say. I really enjoyed that conversation. It's on the Be Impactful podcast. And I have a pretty extensive review / feedback from our local retailer owner, Jody's Collection here in Ballackinwood, right outside of Philly, where Jody offers and services the frum fashion to our community. And she reached out with lots of feedback on last week's episode. So I asked her to send me voice notes so I can plug them in here for you to listen. They will be at the end of the episode. There's so much more to say. Definitely check it out. Jody also went to FIT, just like Rivki. So go check that out and enjoy the show. Welcome back to the Francisca Show. Today with us, we have Benyamin Moalem. Welcome to the show.
Hi, thank you for having me.
Pleasure. I actually wanted to have you on for over a year. I believe we've been trying to make this happen. Do you remember last time we talked about it? And then you were in Israel for a long time. I'm so excited to be doing this. The topic of today's episode is the perspective on dating through the single guy's lens. I want it to be uncensored. I want it to be raw. I want to hear all the things that happen to you, that people say to you, and that you would want to express back, or you'd want people to know about you. And we'll just start off by the way we start off every episode. You could tell us a little bit about yourself, both religiously and professionally. Tell us where you grew up, what institutions you went to, and what you do professionally.
So I grew up in Chicago. I went to religious schools growing up, if anybody's familiar with Ari Crown, Skokie Yeshiva. I left Skokie Yeshiva after 11th grade. I guess you could say I dropped out of high school. Technically, I never finished. Went to Israel for a year, went to YU, then law school, and now I work as a lawyer.
And religiously, where would you say you're now?
Latter Orthodox, let's go with that.
Great. First question, tell us about your dating background and journey that you've been on and how it's changed, perhaps.
This is tough. I don't know that I had much of a well, no, we definitely was a journey. I think we were all on journeys. I'm 39, so this doesn't happen. I didn't just wake up one day and realize, oh, I'm 39, I'm not dating. I guess you could divide it up into different time periods. I guess in my 20s, I was busy with school and it was kind of like, hey, if something happens, great. But I was kind of under the illusion that, and maybe for some people this is the case. And, some people, they meet somebody, when it comes to these things, they're very easygoing, not very risk averse or whatever it is that allows people to get married at such an early age after such a short amount of time of knowing somebody. It was in my early 30s I realized that no, we're not all cut out like that, and there's never going to be somebody who's perfectly tailored for you. There's a leap of faith involved, and we could talk more about this. But I went through an experience that kind of forced me to relook at how I viewed dating and how I viewed, searching for somebody. It's a journey that I'm still working.
Are you open to sharing what that experience was?
In brief, basically I dated somebody for about 9 months and it wasn't there. Like I just wasn't feeling it, whatever that is, whatever you expect to feel or you think you're going to feel, like, hey, whatever, I'm in love, whatever it is that when people are like, oh, I just knew she's the one. For some people, I guess that's true. I think there is a very large group of people out there that there isn't the one. There's somebody that you could, this doesn't sound very romantic, but at the same time, people who think that they're just waiting, especially at my age, you're just waiting for that to happen. It's just not going to happen. If it hasn't happened in the last 20 years, it's just not going to happen. I didn't have that feeling that I just thought that, I'm sure of it. I wasn't sure of it. For someone like me who's risk averse, and would like to talk about what I learned afterwards, I'll speak about that in a minute, but I wasn't feeling it. And if I rewind just about a year before I met her, I had met somebody else who there's no way it could have worked out. But in my mind, I thought like, oh, she's perfect for me. Why can't this work out? Why can't this work out? And I never had the feeling for the girl I was dating, the same one that I had the year before for somebody else. And in a very, very quick period of time, she ended things, rightfully so. I just wasn't there and she wanted to get on with her life. I don't have any hard feelings toward her. She didn't do anything wrong towards me. And a very, very short time later, she got married. Like, very short time. And that kind of crushed me inside. Like, I thought I had ruined my life. I just didn't eat for like 2 weeks. I lost 12 pounds in like a week. It was like I literally couldn't do anything. And I realized that experience could not have been for nothing. I needed to take the lessons that I learned and apply them moving forward. Otherwise, I'm never going to be able to move on. And one of the things I realized was the reason I didn't have the feeling for the second girl as I did for the one a year before was because the girl a year before wasn't real. I knew that could never work out for various reasons. So I allowed myself to fool myself into thinking that, if only she's perfect for me. But it had it been a possibility, I would have immediately found a million reasons or at least one why it couldn't work out, because there's always a reason why. There's nobody who's a perfect fit for anybody. You learn to, and again, I've never been married, but relationships are a give and take. And
can you give examples as to what was unrealistic and why that fantasy
I'd rather
wasn't...
not. Wait, oh, you mean why the first girl was unrealistic?
Like just ballpark. Was it family?
No. The first girl wasn't realistic. We worked on a project together for some period of time, but she wasn't religious. She had a boyfriend. Like, we worked closely, worked very well together, and we liked each other. It wasn't just like that. Was my own. She
was unavailable.
Right. It could not have happened. Had been a real possibility, then I would have immediately gone to all the reasons why we could not be together. And there were plenty. It's just your mind only sees what your anxiety wants it to see, which is something that I learned on the journey I went on after that. I also learned a lot so I learned that I needed to take these lessons and really try to work on focusing on what is there and whether those things are deal breakers. And at the end of the day, there's going to be anxiety involved. But it's a leap of faith. And if you want to move on with your life, it's something you need to do. And I started getting into attachment theory, if you're familiar with that.
But for anyone who isn't, can you explain it?
Yeah, there's three basic types of attachment, the way people are in a relationships. They're secure, I guess, for lack of a better way of explaining. It's just those who are like, hey, we get along, we can, basically the people who can easily just fall into a relationship and stay in a relationship. Those people are secure. They're happy with who they're with. You've got people who are anxious, who, now it doesn't mean that they could have other anxieties, but their relationship form is anxious. I'm not a psychologist. This is based on what I've read and how I'm applying my own life experiences. But people who are always anxious about, oh, he didn't text me back, he didn't do this. And, a lot of people are like that, especially in the beginning. People have traits from each one, but it's something that this is the dominant trait. Meaning they're always anxious about the person that they're with. Do they really like me? Do they want to be with me? And then you have the avoidant. And the avoidant is fiercely independent, loves having their own space, and has an extremely difficult time bringing somebody in to their life. And they always have a way out. They'll go on a date and they're looking for the door, and not literally, but they're always looking for the way out of the relationship. And because their anxiety is being in a relationship. And I think that a lot of, specifically males, because there are more, let's just talk about the Jewish community where there's more males than females. And I think a lot of the
opposite. There are more females.
Sorry, yes, you're right. That's what I meant to say. I think a lot of men who, if they're over 35 and, they got a job, whatever, everything seems fine. They're probably, again, I don't want to, I'm not assuming, I don't know anybody individually. I'm just saying that that's something that I think is not spoken about enough, because people, maybe less so now, but local yentas will be like, oh, why aren't you married? This, aside from the fact that these questions are really annoying and I don't like talking to them, I think it's like, first of all, nobody ever knows what somebody else has going on behind closed doors, and something people need to be sensitive to. But at the same time, this is a real issue that people have. And I think, sometimes you wonder, you have people who might have questions when they're younger and they're kind of prodded by, I was not the type to go to my rabbis and have them kind of talk me into marrying somebody or encouraging me one way or another. This was always something I wanted to do on my own, for better or worse. I think it's something that needs to be looked at in the community and understood, that some people are wired a different way, and those things need to be taken into account, but also it needs to be dealt with, because I'll acknowledge I am in therapy now for this. This happened 7 years ago where I kind of had this epiphany, and I kind of went through waves. Like, there was a period of time where I really tried working through it. And it was like lifting weights, being in a relationship. It's like, you can't just go from 0 to 200 pounds to benching. You need to go increments of 5-10 pounds, and it's painful and it's annoying and you don't want to do it. But if you want to get that goal of 200 pounds and you keep running away from the gym, you're never going to get to it. You need to keep running towards it. And it's hard. Like, I went through a period of time where I tried, and then I was just so drained. I needed a break. Then I go back. So it's just something that really should be, people should acknowledge. And I think people who might be listening, who are males, who are older and can't understand why they've just never met the one, this might be something to look into. Females too. It's not a male problem, but yeah, I think it's more prevalent amongst men. It's more common amongst men. Yes.
You consider yourself in the third category, and the way Shatchanim put it, or heartbroken women put it, is the guys with the commitment issues.
Yes, I don't know if a commitment. I would say somebody with
the idea of being in
avoidance
a relationship
certainly has commitment issues. Yes, no, that's without a doubt. It's tough. But it's not just, commitment is just could come up in other areas as well. You never want to lock yourself into something.
Well, have you bought a house or a condo ever?
No.
Okay. So you said other areas. I was just testing the waters.
No, you're right. I don't want to. The reasons I haven't bought a house or a condo might have there's other reasons involved as well.
I'm not judging.
I understand. I understand. I just don't want people, whoever's out there, to get the wrong idea. I travel for work.
Talk to me more about, I just want to go a little deeper into, there's a better suit on the shelf that if you commit now, there's something else that might be better?
Yes. So the thought process behind it, your brain, and I guess it's a form of anxiety. It's, you're dating somebody and she's obviously not perfect because nobody is. So your brain will hone in onto quote unquote imperfections, whatever they may be. And they could be really stupid, but your brain will look for anything just to get yourself out of the anxiety. Because it's a real form of anxiety, and anxiety is selfish. Anxiety wants to do anything it possibly can to make that feeling go away. So if that means focusing on something that is really stupid so that you could end the relationship and just get that, then it will do that. And you said, is it the fear of something better? No, absolutely. Because in your mind, it'll be like, oh, well, if you don't, well, I'm sure down the line, you'll find somebody else who doesn't have that issue, whatever it is, however dumb it may be. And your brain, your anxiety, the anxiety portion of your brain that's telling you this is, and I've learned it's the amygdala, through my period of time of researching this topic, it's not going to be it's not very rational. It's going to tell you, oh, you'll find somebody who will have that, if you just get out of this. And the analogy I like to say is like, you're driving on a highway, and at some point you need to get off, because the exits eventually will start to become fewer and far between. And you keep telling yourself, well, you can get off this exit, and there's a really nice resort, there's a really nice restaurant, and all that stuff. But you know what? If I stay on it for a few more miles, maybe the next one will be even better. But it's not a good thing because, as I said, the exits become fewer and far between as time goes on.
Well, the last exit is the cemetery,
Well, God forbid. Well, I'm saying you don't want to stay on the highway.
You'll end up in the ground.
Right. But I'm saying, you don't want to you don't want to be on the highway you're right. At the end of your life, you don't want to be on the highway. You want to be off the highway, having settled down and had a family. And if that's what your goal, again, not everybody, that's their goal, and everybody has their own considerations. But yeah, you want to get off the highway before that happens.
So is that your goal?
Yes. And it's been hard for me for a long time, I think that was my goal, because that's what I was brought up and was expected of me. And it got to the point where I wanted it to be my goal, real. And I'm at the point now where, yes, I do. It's easier said than done. It's something that, and also, as I mentioned, there's work involved, but at a certain point you become, and I'm more prepared now than I think. The self-awareness aspect of it really goes a long way. I just had no idea. If you would have asked me 8 years ago, why aren't you married? And my answer would have been, I haven't met the right one yet. And now my answer isn't going to be much different, like I've just explained. Was
it hard for you to start therapy?
So, no. I did it in just 2 different rounds. One round was right after the breakup. I was in such a bad place mentally. I just needed kind of like a sounding board. I wasn't ready to date or move on. I just needed to heal. But after that, I kind of started doing things on my own for a while. And a little over a year ago, I realized, no, I need help. So I started going to therapy again. But this time, you could say my head is screwed on a little bit tighter, because I don't have the pain of, the experience. I could kind of look at things a little bit more objectively and kind of peel away the anxieties and things that are holding me back.
Have you ever been in a relationship that didn't feel draining, that felt energizing to the point that it overrode your anxieties? They talk about the zones in creativity and in work. For example, there's work that you do that you have to focus on and concentrate. And then there is that higher work when you're engrossed in it, you don't even know that time's passing, right? So they call it the zone of genius.
Okay.
And they recommend for artists or to be in those kinds of jobs or works, because then you're less miserable with your life. So my question is, if relationships or being in a relationship invokes so much anxiety, have you ever been in a relationship where you didn't even think that, oh, I'm in a relationship and that's causing anxiety? It was above that, or that you never had that experience? Or maybe you had that experience and then 3 weeks in, it changed.
Okay. So I don't know that I've had, I'm not an artist, so these concepts don't don't, I kind of, my brain works very like,
You're saying every job you did, you hated?
No, not at all. No. Maybe I'm just not fully understanding what you're referring to, but so two things. There have been times maybe in the beginning of a relationship, and again, if you call the relationships I've been in, there haven't been many. Yes, there are times, in the very beginning, you kind of feel excitement, but I guess the way I would frame it is the minute I see that she's ready. Not ready. I mean, like, not ready to get married. No, but I'm saying that she's into me, meaning she wants to take it from, let's say, step 1 to step 2. Not that, again, that'd be marriage, but like, let's say a relationship as opposed to, we just went on a few dates. That's when my anxiety kicks in. And it's almost automatic. And then it's very hard for me to kind of enjoy the moment, so to speak, if that's the right term. I guess the one time I could say that it's like if I don't realize I'm in a relationship, if let's say there's a friend that we spend a lot of time together, we've never spoken about like, dating, but we're kind of spending enough time together where, one might say like we are dating, then maybe the pressure of like putting a label on the relationship that we're in, helps me avoid the anxiety and really trying, and it allows me to better kind of, you're laughing. Yes, yes, I understand.
I know, I'm laughing. I'm thinking to myself, I could see you having some sort of legal arrangement with a woman where you start a family and buy a house. But as long as there's those legal boundaries where she's not your woman or she's not your wife,
meaning as long as there's an out, meaning as long as I have an out.
No, the idea that a woman is exclusive to you or needs you or is in a relationship with you triggers some sort of anxiety response. And I'm not a therapist. I am just analyzing what you're saying versus there's a life you want, but there are these emotions that once one activates the next one, you're automatically removed from the desire of being in that relationship.
Correct. I think, but so two things. So yes.
Or does it repulse you from the person and the idea of, that partner?
Well, no, it doesn't repulse me the person, but there's a few things here to unpack. Number one is when your brain starts to get all anxious about like, okay, you're headed towards a relationship, and it starts honing in on like quote unquote issues that you have with the relationships, just so that you have an excuse to get out. So that doesn't repulse you from the person, but it kind of makes you want to get out of the relationship or the whatever's going on, because your brain immediately says, okay, I need to get out.
There's a threat.
Yes, no, there's a threat to your freedom, and you need to get away. And just by the way, this is a problem that gets worse with age, because as you get older, you enjoy your freedom and enjoy the space. And like, I don't know the reason for this. Maybe part of it is genetic. Part of it is also, I'm the oldest of 7 kids. So it's kind of no surprise that once I got my space and my, peace and quiet, I don't want to give it up so fast. Sometimes I think that could be, a side reason. And again, it's not anybody's fault. It's just the circumstances I was born into. And I'm on good terms with my family, and I don't want to be taken the wrong way by anybody. But we're fine. Love my family. But it's but I also like my peace and quiet, and that's tough too. And my space and people not being in my business, even though now I'm sharing more than I normally do. But
I'm so honored.
But getting back to I was thinking about this before, and then my hope for this is that if there's somebody out there who this helps in any way, and helps them either get help or helps a woman understand that the guy she's been dating, she likes, but, help her understand his mindset so that she can work with him and try to understand him and maybe go to therapy with him so that he could overcome whatever obstacles he has to being in a relationship. Because a lot of times, and I can't tell you for being married, I've never been married, but oftentimes when you've got a decision to make and you have a lot of anxiety over what decision to make, once you make the decision and you go with it, you're fine. And I would like to think that marriage though a much bigger decision, would also fall into this category that once you do it and you're in, it will be easier to live on it'll be easier than the actual decision itself. So that's as an aside. But when you're trying to get into a relationship, it's just very difficult to your brain will try to do anything it can to get away from it and that's why when there's no labels attached, and it sounds bad because like somebody will be like, well, what do you mean you don't want to be in a relationship with me or whatever? It's this is the classic, but I think it's the most genuine. It's not you, it's me situation, because no, not just necessarily me, but anybody that has this issue, it's a real problem. Relationships are something that are an obstacle, and you need to be able to work out what is a real deal breaker. Meaning, and instead of emotionally, where I'm like, oh, I really, really like this person. It sounds very unromantic, and I feel bad, but I think this is just something you need to sort out in your mind, because just like any issue, somebody would go to therapy for.
Do you feel like therapy has helped you?
Yes. It's helped me kind of peel away how deep it goes in my life, the anxiety. I mean, I have anxiety in general and other things, but it kind of helped me see like how anxiety dictates certain things I do in my life and how much it needs to be contained. And once you understand that and you're able to, I guess, get a better idea of what you want in life, you can move forward. And I think, yes, I'm far more. And again, it sounds weird coming from somebody who's 39, but it's better at 39 than at 49. So I'm mentally much more prepared now to actually be in a relationship and understand what it is I'm going through. And as opposed to before, where it's just like not even, and again, it wasn't me, being blind to my problems. It was just complete lack of knowledge and ignorance where, I didn't meet the right one. But no, it's you have to understand it. Could this person be the right one? Maybe they really could be, and you just have certain issues you need to work through. Meaning, instead of saying like, she's not for me, she's not for me, look in the mirror. Maybe it's you who's thwarting something that could be good.
Self-sabotaging.
Yes, exactly. That's exactly what it is. It's a self-sabotage. Again, doesn't mean everybody's for you.
Have you ever heard of the green light, red light concept? I might have mentioned it once on the podcast. I have no idea where it comes from, but there's this thing called red light, green light. And as you described earlier, you were focused on your career and your work, and you were thinking, oh, if it happens, it happens, but I'm not focused on that. So hypothetically, you had your red light on, and then no matter how perfect the woman you're dating is, if you have your red light on or you're not interested in a serious relationship, it's not going to go through. And the moment the green light goes off, the first, they say, half normal, decent, compatible person that shows up in your life, you could seal the deal. Whereas maybe you have been in super long-term relationships before, but the red light was on, so it was never going to happen. Do you feel like your green light's coming out?
It depends. It depends what you mean by red light, green light, meaning you were talking about me being focused on my career. I mean, I don't know that my red light was necessarily on. It was just, meaning, or are you saying my emotional red light, which says I don't want to be in a relationship? Because for somebody who's avoidant, and I can only speak for myself, I don't know that the green light comes on. Maybe the yellow light. Like, your yellow light is always on because you are always on the lookout for red flags, because that's what your anxiety falls back on. Like, find that red flag and run. So yes, I guess, mentally, my green light is on. I want to move on with my life. But emotionally, and this is coming from somebody who I try to work through things intellectually, not, rationally, but the anxiety always wants the red light to be on. And I'm going through therapy to try to get my brain to say, like, to overrule the anxieties red light. I think it's a little bit more complicated than that. Yeah.
Than that decision-making process. You literally have to manually change.
But yes, no, you really need to rewire the way you approach these things, and it's not easy.
Okay, let's talk about some of your pet peeves around the shidduch system and how matchmakers have treated you or spoken to you, or what's the most common thing, what's the most annoying thing.
So really, as It's a good question. We can make a little bit later conversation. In recent years, I've really not had much to do with Shadchanim. If anything, maybe they gave it up on me, which is fine. I just have some stories of where if you have any Shadchanim who are listening, maybe they should take heed to what not to do. I remember once, I was probably around 30, and a local Shadchan comes over to me and she's like, every time I see you, I get so sad. You could have like 5 kids by now. It's like, what was the point of saying that? Like, what do you gain? And what am I going to gain from you telling me that? But my favorite story, it was actually the same woman. I was 30 years old. I was at something, it was like a yantiv or something. She comes over to me and she says to me, she's making small talk, and I'm trying to keep it small talk because I really didn't want to get I didn't want the conversation to go anywhere past that. I wasn't interested in whatever it is that she had to say to me. And she kind of gets real serious, and she's like, if people are listening, I have gray hair. And I started going gray at 17. And so I'm 30 years old, I have gray hair, and she's like, if you want to date girls in their 20s, you need to have black hair. You really need to dye your hair black. And I started laughing. And she says, no, I've been doing shidduchim for however many years, she said. And I know that, girls in their 20s, they want to date a guy with black hair. And if that was my worst problem when it comes to dating, then I think I'd be okay. And again, who's assuming that I only wanted to date girls in their 20s? I was 30 at the time. So a few weeks later, I had a friend who I used to visit at a retirement home, and this woman's mother used to live there. So I was on my way out and saying hello to her mother, and she says to me, each time I see you, she was like in her 90s, and each time I see you, you get more and more handsome. I'm like, yes, Mrs. So-and-so, because each time you see me, my hair is grayer than the last time you saw me. And just then, her daughter happened to be walking into the room, and she's like, you could do things about that. And I said, yes, but I'm not.
That's interesting, the comments on appearance, and which women get all the time, based on the research and experience I have in this space. So welcome to the unpleasant piece of matchmaking.
I can't imagine. I've only heard, anecdotal stories like that. I didn't realize it was so common. And again, I wasn't hurt in the least bit. I wasn't offended. I don't care. I came to accept my hair color in my early 20s. But yeah, I have been upset. Not when people have made comments to me, people just yantis from the community who want to, for anybody who's a Curb Your Enthusiasm fan, familiar with the term stop and chat. When people on the street just want to start talking to you, people who you don't really know and you really don't want to talk to, you kind of need to have a line to get out of that. But there's also the stop and interview where, again, this has happened to me recently. I've just kind of been away from my hometown for so long and everything. So this doesn't happen to me so frequently. But when I was in law school and living in Chicago, this did happen. And then the worst one was the stop and lecture, where somebody who barely knows you tells you why you're not married, as if they know you. That I have had, and it's just disrespectful. Yeah,
I hear that. What is the number one reason people tell you you're not married, if I may ask?
Again, I haven't had one of these encounters in a long time, but I do remember somebody coming over to me and telling me, like, you're not married because you don't want to be married. If you set a wedding date right now, you'll be married by then. Okay.
Well, I actually know someone who did set a wedding date and booked a hole, and he did not get married. He did not find anyone to marry, so...
Did he lose his deposit?
Fact for that. I have no idea. I'm sure he turned the event into some other event if the money was on the line.
There was a movie like that in Israel. I forgot what it was called, but I saw it.
Well, it was an Israeli man who did that. So you're like, I don't know if they call it a unicorn, but it's so fun for me to talk to you because I'm on the end of the listening ear of the young women who talk about men like you, like not just you. And many men like you have gotten married. So it's not like it's a forever state.
I have friends who have worked through whatever it was and they're married now. It can be done.
Yeah. Is there anything else you feel like is relevant that I didn't ask you yet?
Yes. There was one question I thought you were about to ask it is, what could the women do who are in this situation? And I think and again, I can't tell anybody how much patience to have or how, because I know that this is what happened with, I was in a situation where she wanted to get married. I wasn't there yet. There's only so much patience you could demand of somebody. But if you really see something in someone and you think that this guy could be, don't apply too much pressure, because the pressure and the anxiety. But again, you have to put enough pressure that they're going to move, and not that you're just going to let them coast as long as you want, because this sort of indecisiveness could leave you coasting for years. And I'm not exaggerating. So there needs to be a proper balance of patience, but there needs to be in progress. The patience meaning needs to be on the progress, meaning I read a story about a guy who was in a similar situation around my age, and he wrote a book about it. And he said that, the book is called How to Commit. Some of the stuff, he himself is a psychologist, I think. I didn't quite connect to some of the theoretical things he was talking about in terms of like mentally how to get over it. I connected a lot more to the book Attached and, attachment theory and how to work through avoidance. But he gave the analogy of working through, the weights, meaning you can't walk into the gym, not ever lifting, and then expect to lift 200 pounds. You need to work through it, to work through the pain. And he said when he finally got engaged to his girlfriend, he kind of had this breakdown in the middle where he didn't know if he could go through with it. And she calmly handed him her ring and was like, "That's okay. Just let me know when you're ready." And just knowing that she was calm about it and not going crazy at him, justifiably so, because of his anxiety was kind of dragging her along for the ride, that calmed him enough to say "Oh, okay, that I'm not locked in. I'm not, it just was able to calm his anxiety just enough. You got to find the proper, bottom line is you got to find the proper balance to make sure that the guy his anxiety is calm, meaning be understanding of his anxiety and help him work through it and make sure that there is progress being made. Because if there's no progress, then the patience is for nothing.
Right. Because on one hand, you mentioned something about, once you pull the plug, as you call it, or, sign the ktuba. You don't sign the ktuba. Women don't sign anything except the prenups.
Right.
But once you're over that hump.
So I'm a big proponent of the halachic prenup. There's a chance to plug it. So
yeah, let's plug it. Then that sort of overcomes. There is divorce. That is a way out, technically. If that anxiety needs to be fed for the rest of its life, we're not Catholic in that sense.
No, right. That is a way. That's one way of thinking about it. You're absolutely correct.
And if I can leave you with anything, maybe it's that there can be an anxiety or realizing that the anxiety of being alone at 70 might override the anxiety of having a wife, and saying, yes, this is very uncomfortable, but I really don't want to be alone at 80. And this person seems like they fit everything I possibly need right now. And she's so understanding of my anxiety and craziness, if I may call that. Mm-hmm. But one overriding the next. I don't know if that perspective or paradigm shift helps at all.
It's definitely a form of anxiety that I do think about, but it's which one is more immediate. The one that's more immediate is going to be the stronger form of anxiety, because that anxiety is going to tell you, yeah, but you're not 70 yet, and give it a few more months and you'll find somebody who doesn't have that issue, even though mentally that's not true. Or not necessarily true. Anything's possible.
Okay, so let me make it more immediate. Hold on, you challenged me. Mm-hmm. Now, let's say you get married tomorrow. You'll probably be 40 by the time your first child's born, assuming everything goes well. You'd have a 40-year age gap with your oldest child. And how many years do you want to spend with that child? So that makes that mortality much more urgent.
Yes. Yeah, no, I've thought of that as well. That's also a thought that's crossed my mind. Yeah, it's not easy. It's competing. When somebody has anxiety, anything that you could possibly be anxious about, you'll be anxious about. It's like a vacuum. You scratch one.
My question is, you can't use one fear against the other as a tool.
I guess you can, but like you said, one has to be stronger than the other, and the one that's the most immediate is usually going to be the stronger one. But it's a technique, and it'd be nice if I could channel it that, have another tool to fight it that way. But it's usually the one that's more immediate. It's going to be the one that wins out. it hopefully doesn't win out and you finally overcome it.
So any parting thoughts or words of wisdom, parting thoughts for us?
It's just something to take into account. I think that the male listeners who might be wondering why they're still single at, plug in the age, just be something to look into attachment. And there's an article. What really got me into this is a friend of mine sent me an article about this. The article has like a short questionnaire where you answer a few questions, and it really, there's questions that make you secure, questions that indicate that you're anxious, and questions that indicate that you're avoidant. And I'm reading the questions of the avoidant, and it was like looking into like a window into my soul. This was a few years ago, and it just spoke to me. And just knowing that I knew what all the issues were individually, but kind of putting it under a framework and knowing that there's something out there that will help me fight this was a big help for me. So I would really encourage anybody who sees this or if people have other, are anxiously attached and have trouble with that, that's also something to look into. And to the women, just to be a little bit more understanding that the guys are not necessarily all out there just looking to party and have a good time while the women are waiting around for the guys to get their act together. I mean, we're trying to get our act together, but it's a little bit more complicated than, we're just partying and we're waiting for the party to end, because I'm not a big party person. That was never my thing.
Tell me about your latest endeavor online.
I recently started an Instagram page where I curate the news from Israel. I have individual slides briefly explaining each story that's going on in Israel at any given time. The Instagram handle is at Moalem, my last name, Bymoalem, and I would encourage everybody to follow it.
And one more thing to add, if I can just apologize first for seeming like I'm trying to fix you on this podcast. I want to make it public that I am not viewing you as a subject of needing fixing. I was trying to have a more interesting conversation.
Like I said, if this will help somebody out there, it's worth it.
Yeah. And number two, one more thought I wanted to just throw your way is, just like you explained that dating that turns into a relationship activates the high anxiety, that anxiety activates that amygdala threat reaction in a woman who wants a commitment from a man versus being strung along. So your actions have their reactions, correct? And it's like red flag out of here. Okay. Yes. So thanks so much for doing this. I really enjoyed this conversation. I really want to hear from our audience, and I hope this helps. And definitely check out the new Instagram page. We will link it in the show notes. So thank you, Benyamin.
Thank you very much. Good seeing you.
Thanks for sticking around until the end. And now, if you would like to hear the feedback about last week's episode when it comes to sizing issues in the frum community, tznius, and pricing from the perspective of the retail store, definitely stick around for that. I'd love to hear what you think. Here's Jody.
Hot topic, this topic of being from and tznius and sizing and what are the big complaints and all that. Here we go. So let's talk about sizing. I don't really like to use the word plus sizes because I don't really think they're plus sizes anymore. I think they're just extended sizes. We've had a bit of a revolution in the frum industry. I think that has to do with the fact that they just can't get the sizing right. I don't know that I think it's an ongoing issue. I will tell you that while they may not have gotten it right in the past, I really think that these companies are striving to get it right. I think that they've addressed the customer. I think it's because the retailers have asked them to. I know in the past, for me in my store, I've had customers disappointed and walk out of my store because an extra large doesn't fit them where an extra large should. There is no standard sizing in the frum industry like there is in, I guess you would call, the regular secular industry of clothing. An 8 is not an 8 or an extra large where it should be like a 12 or 14. It could be like a size 10. So there's for sure a need for a regulation, and sizing is not going to happen. So I do see a push, and I see it evolving that we have extended sizes for women. And I will say that every single manufacturer that I've worked with, and over the last 2 seasons at least, have extended sizes in their lines. What that means is that a woman can shop a regular label and have available to her double XL, which sometimes really just relates to an XL. And if she can ignore the sizing and just try on the dress, which is sometimes hard to do, she can find her size. What it means for the retailer, me, is that we have to spend a little bit more money so that we have sizes available for our customers. But that's an investment that we make. The other thing that I've noticed about extended sizes is there are one or two of my vendors that I deal with, and I keep a tight roster of vendors that have gone into, and I'm, for lack of a better word, I'm going to say the plus size business. And that's a really smart move, I think. It's a way to control their business. It's a way to make money. I think that the retailers are asking for it, and you can pick and choose where you're going to go with that. I have done that. I've definitely touched upon that in my business. It takes a while for that business to grow, but I think it's an important segment of our business. And it's also about getting the proportions right. That being said, it is always a beef for me and for my customers, and I hear it all the time, that our sizing is out of whack. It's crazy for a young girl to come into my store who may be, 5'7", thin, and have to wear an extra large because she needs it for the length or because the proportions are out of whack or whatever. So it's a constant battle that I have. From manufacturers, definitely size on the small side. And it can be very disconcerting. And sometimes I really have to talk to my customers and explain to them that it's not about the size of the garment, it's about the fit. And it's not easy because if you're used to wearing a size 6 and you have to wear a size 10, or if you're used to wearing a small and you have to put on a medium, there's a psychological edge to that. So it's not easy. It's a constant battle that I fight, but that is what it is as far as our business. So so sizing is a hot button topic. Many people, many women have just gotten used to the fact that in their closet, they may have a size extra small, may have a small, they may have a medium. It is what it is. And also, I just want to touch on the fact that there aren't enough plus sizes that, they don't go high enough. It's very hard to do that, and it's hard to do it well. So the people that do only plus sizes, I'm sure and I hope that they have that mastered. I can see that for me, I only like to go up to 2X because the proportions get very sketchy. And I quite honestly don't know enough about the plus size business, so I don't venture into that past to 2X. I don't like to do 3X. It's also not my business. And I'm a firm believer of staying in your lane as far as business. And it has something to do with from companies being responsible to sell SNEAS clothing, which is something we touched upon or was touched upon in your podcast. I really believe that from companies are responsible for selling SNEAS clothing because why else do we need them? For me, I represent a certain standard. It's basically my mission statement. You come into my store, you're going to find a dress that's going to cover your elbows. It's going to cover your knees. It's going to hopefully cover your collarbone, depending on where it falls and, how you're built and where your shoulders are and all of that. But that's what I provide. That's the service that I provide. Within that framework, you're going to find different price points. You're going to find price points, for a skirt that could start at $26 for a girl that goes up to $72. You're going to find dresses for women that start at $64 these days, or maybe $49 that go up to $300. Within that framework of basics and Shabbos and Yom Tov, and now what I'm going to be bringing in this year or next season actually is Simcha wear, which I feel like there's a need for that in this community. Within that framework, my responsibility, or what I feel my responsibility to my customers, to the ultimate consumer, to my community here, is to provide for them the most beautiful, the most current, the most fashionable SNEAS clothing. If not SNEAS clothing, then they can go anywhere. Then they can go to Zara, or they can go to Saks, or they can go to H&M, or wherever they need to go to buy a short sleeve dress. They can buy a beautiful short sleeve dress, or they can buy a beautiful V-neck t-shirt that's $20. Or they can buy a short skirt that they don't have to spend $64 on, quite honestly. They don't need me for that. What I'm here to do and what I'm here to provide, and the service that really I'm passionate about providing, and I really get passionate about this, is to provide my customers with beautiful SNEAS clothing. That's what I'm here for. That is always what I created my store for. That's what I started my business for. And that's how it's grown. And that's what I do. And if not for a from manufacturer, I would not be able to have my business. And I've gotten to the point where, except for one children's manufacturer, and I don't even think I'm going back there, I only buy from manufacturers. I only. Why? Because when I walk into that showroom, I know that I'm going to find merchandise that fits exactly into what my needs are. Dresses that cover the knees, or 21 inches from high point of shoulder to hem, which is an industry standard. Kosher necklines within an acceptable range, which I know what I need, and sleeves that are going to cover the elbows. So thank God we don't have to wear shells anymore. But really, this is what I need, whether it's for women or girls or teens. I know I'm going to walk into that showroom, and what they're going to show me when I say to them, is it going to cover the knee? Yes. Is it going to cover the elbow? Yes. If I choose to buy a sleeveless dress, I can get it with a cardigan that covers it, or I know that I can find something to wear underneath it. That's my choice. So yes, I believe it's the responsibility for manufacturers to carry tznius clothing. Okay. Question is, you say, well, so they have a 23-inch skirt, and they have a 25-inch skirt, and they have a 27-inch skirt. So you can buy a short skirt. Yes, of course. Of course, you can buy a short skirt. And do I stock those skirts? Yeah, of course. I'm going to have a 23-inch skirt. Well, maybe not. I'll have a 25-inch skirt. I actually don't have a 23-inch skirt in my store for women. But when somebody comes in and they're trying a skirt and they say to me, does this cover my knee? They want from me the answer that it does cover their knee. That's what they want from me. I don't know what they want from other people, but I will tell you what they want from me. Very often I have instances where people come into my store. They need to sit on a chair to make sure that it covers their knee. That's my store. That's my customer. Part of knowing how to be successful, I think, is knowing who you are, who your customer is, and thriving within that framework. Again, I really believe that it is on the responsibility of the from manufacturer. I think they would agree too, that they carry tznius clothing just the way it's my responsibility to uphold a certain level, my level of tznius in my clothing. That's what my customer expects. If you don't need that from me, you don't shop from me. And I get that. That brings us to another big point. I talked about different prices and things that are available, and a big, I guess, complaint or I think maybe concern is probably a better word for people today is price. And it's a real thing. There's no beating around the bush about it. We've all seen it. Prices are going up. And I think that no matter how we try to rationalize it, it's just a fact of life. Everywhere we see it, prices are going up. I think that we have to pick and choose. I think that if you're going to dress a certain way, you're going to buy certain clothing. I can't apologize. I mean, I can apologize. It's very difficult to raise prices. I really try to keep my prices as close to the bone as possible. I try to run my sales, but the fact of the matter is the prices coming to us, the retailers, have risen so much. Prices in China are high, To say that you don't have to wear clothing is a silly thing. Certainly there are other places where you can buy other clothing that are less expensive, and that's the choice of the consumer. I am not here to say where they should buy their clothing. I'm not here to say how much clothing they should buy. We all know those answers. You can buy disposable clothing if that's what you want to do. And I actually think that there's a certain part of everybody's wardrobe that they consider disposable, whether it's an everyday t-shirt, whether it's socks, whether it's a nightgown, whatever it is. There are certain things that you can always save money on. To me, and probably because I have a store, but if it's a Shabbos dress or Shabbos clothing, and you're going to make the investment in one dress, make it a good investment, especially for women's clothing, kids' clothing. I carry children's clothing, so obviously I see the value in it. Do I hear my customers saying, oh my gosh, prices are so high, it's so hard to buy for kids? Yes, there's no question about it. So it's a choice that you make. And then as far as teens and weekday, I think it's the same thing. I think that we all know how and where we need to spend our dollars and where we get our best value. So Do you look at value over quality? It's a personal decision. I'm not here to make those decisions for people. I know that I try to have as many different price points as possible. I know that I have quality. And then we let the customer make up their minds. I think that we're all educated consumers at this point, and we all have to wear clothing. The other thing that we have to do, and I'm speaking as a retailer now and not as a wholesaler, is we have to provide the opportunity for our customers to be able to buy our clothing. So while we as retailers have to be responsible for our own bottom line, which is really important, there's always an opportunity for our customers to be able to buy on sale. So I make a tremendous effort to be able to sell as much as I can, as much as I should at regular price. And then we do really good sales so that the portion of the community that wants to buy on sale can also participate and be a part of buying from Jody's collection. So I think that, it does even out. So if you want to really buy quality clothing and want to do it at a sale price, you can also do that. So everybody can take advantage. Let's talk about fashion a little bit, because we're talking about SNES and we're talking about pricing and we're talking about sizing, and those are all like such itchy topics. But let's talk about fashion, because that's really part of why we're in this business and what everybody, I know, for me, from the time I was little, this is all I ever wanted to do. And I started out drawing and wanting to be a designer, and I was not so great at it. And then, I was working for a clothing company and they told me I needed to go into sales, whatever. But it's all about the fashion. Really, 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 in the bottom line, we wouldn't be doing this if we didn't love the fashion of it. Because I'm walking around the stores, I'm talking and I just love it. Okay, so you have to have that passion. Then we talk about fashion. And let's face it, we all know it. It's been said, it's just heard it. There's really nothing new. It's just about recreating, always. It's always about recreating and taking what we loved or what we thought we loved or what we maybe liked, and then recreating that and making it better or making it different. But let's face it, it's always about recreating something again and again and again. But I never liked the word copying. We don't copy. I used to work for a company in Manhattan. It was a men's company. We used to go into the stores. We used to buy up every single sample, and we used to adapt them. So it's all about adapting fashion. And it's really cyclical. Fashion's really cyclical. Everything comes around. So everything's long right now. All the dresses are long. If you don't like long, oh my gosh, what are we going to do? But that will end. And then short will come back. And then everybody will complain that, oh my gosh, everything's so short. I can't wear short. So if you just wait it out, everything will come back. But it's all about the cycles of fashion. And if you take some time to study it, you'll see it ebbs and flows with the way our economy goes. It's all about the fashion. And yes, we do. We go into the stores, and the from companies do it. But everybody does it. The from companies go into the stores, and they go into the department stores, and they go into the better stores, and they watch the runways, and it all filters down, by the way, from couture. It starts there, and it all filters down until it finally reaches us. So we go and we adapt. If you take a look at what's on the runway, as crazy as those styles look, ultimately and eventually that will come down. You will eventually see it coming into the retail stores for the ultimate consumer. So yes, that's the nature of our business. We adapt everything, whether it's pleats or plaids or stripes or leather or fur or metallics. It all gets reconstituted and adapted and redone over and over and over again. So that's really the nature of our business. And that's what ends up in your closet. Speaking of your closet, I don't think that anything stays in your closet for 7 years, or should, unless it's a great bag, shoes, or vintage. I really think that we all want to not replace necessarily. We all want to infuse our closet with something new and fresh every season, for sure. Or else, again, we wouldn't be in this business. I'm not saying that we have to have a new wardrobe every season. But for sure, I know for me, I have my basics that I wear all the time, and I wear a lot of black. But I know that every season I want to freshen up. I want something new and something fresh in my closet. If you tell a 19 or 20-year-old girl that she's going to have in her closet in 7 years what she has now, she'll look at you like, really? No, I don't think so. Even for me, I think that we will wear the one or two things, the staples, maybe every few years, or for 3 years maybe, or 2 years, or 2 seasons, let's say. But for sure, for women, you want to freshen up that closet every season. There's going to be a new skirt. There's going to be a new dress. There's going to be a new hemline. You know, you don't want to look like you're wearing your clothing from the 3 seasons ago, because it does get dated. There's no question about that. And for sure, like, that's women. I mean, kids for sure, they grow. And, you know, we grow too. Our sizes change. So unless you want to be the dressmaker, you know, every year, fashion changes, styles change. You do need to freshen up your wardrobe. I've touched on a lot of subjects. I just want to go back to the SNEAS subject one more time, because I talked about it as far as referring to the vendors and business. And I don't know if I said this, but I just really want to reiterate it. The whole thing about SNEAS, it's really not just about the clothing. It really comes from within. So it's about who you are. Yeah, I sell SNEAS clothing. It's Jody's collection, and it's fashionable firm clothing for women, girls, and teens. But really, it's about what's inside. And I can't do anything about that. But I will tell you, when I have a young girl come into the store and she tries on a dress, I don't look at her elbows. I don't look at her knees. I don't look at her collarbone. I really look at her face. And if she's smiling and she's happy, that's the most important thing, because that's what's coming from, I'm going to cry. That's what's coming from within. That, because I know I'm putting a SNEAS dress on her. I know that, because that's what I have. But if she's smiling and she feels good about herself, that's the most important thing, because she knows she's wearing something appropriate, but she knows she feels good in it. And forget about the looking beautiful comes from the feeling beautiful. And that's what we're doing here. That's what we're creating, from the manufacturers, from the retailers, from the mothers who bring their girls in, from the mothers who come in, from the teenagers who come in. We're creating for them this feeling of feeling beautiful. And that's what we need to keep in mind. So all the other stuff becomes extraneous. This is the most important thing. That for me, when somebody walks out of my store, they feel beautiful, because what we've been able to do for them.
Thank you, Jody. We will link Jody's collection in the show notes as well. Join us on the WhatsApp discussion group. Send me messages. Become a sponsor. Listen to other podcasts on jewishcoffeehouse.com. And see you next time. Have a great week.